I just love filming outside. It's wonderful. But this is about my 20th take. Because I keep getting trains, power saws, and all of it, and I don't really care anymore. So we're just going to keep on. If it happens, sorry. I'm going to start this video by asking you to subscribe. Please subscribe. 75% of my viewers are not subscribed. And it's frustrating. I need you. So please do that. I spend a lot of time making these videos, and I put a lot of thought into the content that I bring to you because I am legitimately concerned about the future. In the West, our democracy, our rights, our freedoms. It's just amazing how in times of strife that true colors shine. And we're learning it on all sorts of frontiers. On one hand, we're watching our government and their respective and not respected public health officers in every province. And we're all enduring abuse in gaslighting every single day. I knew our government was abusive because I went through it before with them years ago in a GST audit. When I was doing my magazine, Organic Lifestyles, I published 60,000 copies that went all across the country for free into health food stores every 2 months. Then I was loud. I spoke my piece. They didn't like that too much. They put me through hell. And quite honestly, I've never recovered from it all. Never. I ended up giving up that magazine. I sold my hemp food company, which I had been doing before that. And life got harder. I was in my early 40s, 42, when I finally parted company with this web that experts had helped me create based on their recommendations. And it's funny as you age and you look back. And what I found interesting was that the years that I was actually making money in my businesses was the years that I did it all on my own. It was when the experts got involved and the larger I became, I was told I needed mentorship, I needed this, I needed that, I needed accountants. And you know what? I can tell you, when I was working, and actually it was a block away where I started my hemp food company, I had already been contracted to the company, and then I bought them out eventually. But I did it all in my sunroom, and I had a garage, and I went out and packed those boxes every single day in the afternoon. And it would be funny, I would laugh because I would be on the phone with Japan and a mega corporation, and I would laugh because they would think they were kind of dealing with a corporation, and it was just me in my sunroom. And I realized through that experience, as I grew my company into a warehouse, that I didn't want to work there. And I didn't. In 2002, as early as 2002, I came across remote access with QuickBooks. And I started working independently. Again, I started everything independently. I grew it to incorporate people. And then I moved back to my home to work. I would pop in, make sure we were on time. And eventually I hired management to allow me to do the magazine, do the hemp food company, be on the board of Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership, things like that. And I have to tell you, that's when it all went to hell. I believe that all of these things we must do are contrived to keep us in a box in which we can never get out. Now, when I sold my hemp food company and then got rid of the magazine, I can tell you it took me 2 years to break that down. I never thought it would end. It was a horrible drudgery that I never want to endure again. I don't. And what made it worse beyond the experts was the sheer amount of regulations that continue to escalate and put me in a position that I would have to finance and sell out my baby in order to keep it relevant and competitive. I'm so glad I got out back then, and I was kind of proud of myself because I did wrap up that company and sell it, start it, build it, wrap it, and sell it. And that was a cool experience, I have to tell you, and I'm so glad I did that by the time I was 42. But I never really recovered financially because in the sale of that company, the people that bought it didn't want to pay the bill. And they unleashed the dogs from hell on me. And I literally have never recovered. I've held on to this house. But reality is setting in here because, of course, I was diving in January to Agenda 2030. And I was going to actually build a business around that, educating people to prepare for what was to come, or hopefully to educate them enough to fight back against the global plan and the future of the earth, which is UN Agenda 2030, formerly known as a UN Agenda 21. Now, nobody ever paid attention to the agendas because it sounded like sci-fi. I remember hearing about Agenda 21 as early as 2002 in my hemp food business when I was traveling overseas in Europe, spending time in Amsterdam, spending time in Rome with thinkers. And it sounded like a pipe dream. It really did. I couldn't understand how we could go from there to what these documents were suggesting. And even as I did all the research to build myself up to take on Agenda 2030 in January, I couldn't see how that would possibly happen, particularly where we live in the West, because we're democratic and we have rights and freedoms. And then, of course, the plandemic. Who would have thunk they would have been so bold? But it was just the ingredient to shift us into mode. And here we go, because this is our future. And we know that future includes being perceived as diseased unless proven innocent by a vaccine. We have seen our rights and freedoms be eroded just like that by calling states of emergencies. Extraordinary powers being delivered to government and corporations, and true colors have shone through. What's really interesting for me is, just like any relationship or true color situation, you learn a lot after the third month, right? And what I'm seeing in social media as I blow through a lot of comments, I read comments, I'm one of those people, I learn a lot of information from there, and I'm seeing people picking up what is going on. There's many sheep that are sheep no more, but there's also a lot of people who just can't fathom it yet, and this is where, well, they're in trouble. If they are a person who believes in free will, not communism. Because in order to facilitate these Agenda 2030 goals, they need to erode our freedoms and rights because they know we won't agree with them. This is a process. And in Canada, we can see them trying to disarm legal gun owners, hunters. This is all coming down. And as we're finding, some of the corporations have let it go to their head and are now demanding that we comply with their fascist agenda and their measures. And I just won't. Now, of course, the reason I started my own companies way back in the day was because I knew I'd never really get along in a corporation. I found when I worked in teams, quite honestly, I did most of the work. I propped other people up. I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't. I wanted to pursue an independent path. And of course, I learned to be well-rounded as well. I've done a lot of things. Service. Quite honestly, being a waitress, bartender, and restaurant manager set me up perfectly for retail. And I'd done retail in the past in my teens. It also set me up perfectly to pursue a hemp food business because my competitive advantage in a slew of other companies that had the very same product was the fact that I kicked ass at service. I knew that was important. You never phoned my company and it didn't get answered. No, it was rare. And I knew the only way I could win at the game was to give service. I've done a lot. I've done the journalism I've always wanted. I've done the marketing. But right now, we are at a critical juncture because I'm spending a lot of time educating people about Agenda 2030 and what is to come. And just like everybody else, I have to make a living. So I have to embark on incorporating living into my work. As we were in and are still in a state of emergency where I live anyway, we're not out of the woods yet. And it's important to keep the activism up. And it's not activism, really. It's education. And that's really where I want to go. But I also want to apply practical knowledge. Because as I watch those comments, although people are getting it, their attitude is, I just won't comply. And the thing is, you will comply eventually. Because when you get hit with fines and a hole that you cannot escape, you will. And I've been doing things my own way for a long time, and I believe that the only way to counter what is to come in our own lives is to pursue a path of absolute individualism. Absolute. Agenda 2030 is all about state control, a little communist society, socialist, fascist, ratting people out, the common good. That's really a system of bullying. We know that social credits from China, who developed those systems, is coming. Airbnb's been doing it for years. And this defunding the police, all of these government-sanctioned protests, because they are pushing us into this model of absolute interdependence. And the only way you can say no to this is to stay out of the fray and stay out of the matrix best you can. And I've been doing it for a long time. This last year for me, due to nasty people in my city, I backed right out 100%. And funny enough, with Airbnb, I didn't really have to go many places because I had entertainment coming in my house every day. I had 3 guests here at all times for a long time. So I was always social in my own home. And I set the rules. But I don't want to play out there that much. I don't. And with contact tracing, with the fascist true colors that we're seeing in a lot of people, corporations, behaviors, I don't want to be part of that. And as I try to teach you about Agenda 2030, I also want to apply some practical to all of that. And that's teaching you about how I've stayed out of the fray and how we can all work to create a society within a society. Because I think that's our only option right now. I do. I see all of these political posts going out every day. We've got The Line, we've got unify.ca, unify the people. Sounds great. It's not going to have enough legs. It's not. I'm a woman of practicality, even though I'm a dreamer. And I'm a Virgo. And we're practical. And this is coming down whether you like it or not. It is. Our governments right now are holding us hostage to their global transition to a UN Agenda 2030 goals. And one of those is social distancing, just so you know. It's never going away. Understand that. And I think many people are. But we can say that we won't vaccinate and we won't do this and we won't do that. But when you can't operate and they make it so you can't operate, that is the reality of it all. I'm a traveler, and I never thought for a million years I wouldn't be traveling anymore, but that may be a reality for me. I will not subject myself to toxic chemicals. Honestly, it was bad enough when I would leave Ecuador or go from Houston to Ecuador. In the international flights, there's some sort of insecticide, pesticide they use, and I would feel lucky for days in my guts every time, and I can smell it. It's like you breathe out and there's a certain odor, and you just don't forget it, and it's present in that plane every single time. That was hard enough to endure. What I found after was that I wasn't traveling as frequently as I used to, because in the old days I was on a plane every second day. I loved it. But when I go somewhere, I go for a while. And if I travel again outside of a car, that's going to be consideration. With international travel coming up, I know that I am not going to you're going to need 2 weeks on either end, put it that way. You want to get those kids into school? They're going to be requiring vaccinations. They're not going to push it down your throat right now, but it's coming. And this is where we need to make our decisions. Are you going to subject your children to poison under the guise of their health? Because it's really the same thing that's happening right now. With this continual abuse we are now suffering from our government. Gaslighting. Dina Hinshaw in Alberta saying that people should be wearing masks. It's criminal. And these are the true saboteurs of humanity. We can't trust them. And as many people are figuring out. And we cannot wait for elections. I mean, right now, Parliament isn't even in. They won't go back. Trudeau is not making it happen. Because he doesn't want it to happen. He has ultimate control right now. The World Health Organization has ultimate control of our country right now. And this is what we need to be absolutely concerned about. At the end of the day, right now, it doesn't matter where the virus came from. Doesn't matter how it got here. There's a whole lot of corruption. I mean, I'm watching it every day, so are you. Where is it getting us? And what is it going to change going forward? Is it going to change the measures in any of these stores and the retailers? Is it going to change the measures anywhere? Are they going to call this whole thing a plandemic? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to keep with their bullshit stories till the end. And if we're smart, we're going to realize that there's nothing we can do to change that. But what we can do is change the future and how we operate. My whole thing forever has been to enlighten you so that you can do, to promote independence. And honestly, I didn't understand when I was diving into Agenda 2030 that in fact that's how or where I would start heading. Because I've gotten to the point that, yeah, I love exposing the nastiness of our world. I love the exposés, I love the research, I love all of that. But at the end of the day, what I'm seeing is, yes, a lot of people are becoming aware, but they're not embarking on what they need to be doing. And that is making change, because time is here. A lot of people are saying, well, I won't do it. Okay, great. So what's your plan? And that's what we really all need to be doing right now. Now, of course, I was looking at Agenda 2030 because I was going to make a living at that. Speaking, educating groups of people as to what was to come. And that is going to be part of it. But I also have another talent, and that's for living quite independently and manifesting the life you want for yourself. I've never done things their way. I haven't. And if there was ever a time to establish your independence, it's now, or it's going to be forever lost.